Welcome to Perfectville, your first place podcast for your third place, 1-4, soon to be coachless Miami Dolphins, part of the BLEAV network, presented by Fanduel. I am Sam Marcous, and we're just going to have to get through it. Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of Perfectville, the Miami Dolphins go down in flames to the Carolina Panthers, 27-24, a game that the Miami Dolphins needed to win, a game that the Miami Dolphins should have won, the game that the Miami Dolphins were winning at one point, 17-0. They dominated on a time of possession early. They got the ball into the end zone. They were turning the ball over in fumbles and interceptions. Yet somehow, some way, due to Rico Dowdle and the Carolina Panthers' ability to not give up, the Miami Dolphins snatch a loss from the jaws of victory and go down to the Carolina Panthers on the road, 27-24, to drop to 1-4. And the only reason they're in third place is that the only team that they have beaten, the New York Jets from a couple of Mondays ago, are about the only team worse than the Miami Dolphins right now. It is bad in the town of Perfectville. Something stinks with the Miami Dolphins and the Fish. It doesn't look like it's going to end well, not even at the end of this season, but it feels like the noose is tightening around Mike McDaniel's neck. It feels like the wagons are circling around Chris Greer. The pressure is on Stephen Ross to make something happen, to do anything to give this fan base any sort of hope for the future, both near term and long term. We're going to talk all about that. I actually have David Bearman from Betting with Bearman here on the BLEAV Network joining me here in just a little bit. He is, as you guys know, a huge Miami Dolphins fan as well, and a Florida Gator alumni and fan. It's been a bad football year for Mr. Bearman. So we're going to talk all about that. We're going to cry on each other's shoulders. We're going to try to figure out how to fix the Miami Dolphins for the rest of this season and what they need to do going into next season. We are going to talk a little bit about this Chargers game coming up. I think it's very telling that the Los Angeles Chargers have lost their starting running back, their second string running back, Omarion Hampton. They've lost two in a row. They're traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast, something that usually doesn't bode well for West Coast teams, yet they're favored by 4.5 on Fanduel. That tells you the story. That tells you everything you need to know about the Miami Dolphins. I mean, it's fun when you look at these, when you look at the betting lines, when you look at the handicappers, the people that are looking at this game, and you look at the numbers, it's, yes, the numbers are there to gamble and bet on, but it's the story behind those numbers. What is the meaning behind the meaning, the need behind the need, so to speak, as to why those numbers are set the way they are? And I think the story here is that despite all of the headwinds that the Los Angeles Chargers are feeling right now with their injuries, with their inability to win games, they are still light years ahead of the Miami Dolphins, even though they're going to be on the road, even though they're going to be on the East Coast with an early morning game. Does not matter in the eyes of the prognosticators, because the Miami Dolphins are a dumpster fire right now. And if they're the ones starting the dumpster fire, they probably couldn't get the match lit. So I don't know if you guys saw it, but after the Panthers game, there was video of Mike McDaniel walking to the locker room, very sullen, very somber, by himself. No swagger whatsoever. Looked very much like a guy who did not appear to be confident that he was going to have a job shortly after that walk. As it turns out, Stephen Ross just isn't quite ready to make that change, although it feels like it's coming. Earlier this year, we had David Bearman on, and he said he thought Mike McDaniel would be fired after the Madrid game. Well, the Madrid game's coming up. And given the results that we've seen so far from the Miami Dolphins, I think David Bearman might be correct. I think he's correct here. He's correct about a lot of things, which is why it's always fun to have him on the show, because he seems to understand what's happening. It seems to come into focus for him just a little bit sooner than the rest of us. But something's got to happen. Something's got to change. I feel like a broken record coming on this show every single week saying, well, we got to do this. We got to do that. Look, the Miami Dolphins did what I thought they were supposed to do. I mean, they scored 3 touchdowns on offense. They turned the ball over on the Carolina Panthers. They could not run the ball. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't run. That was really the story of this game. Rico Dowdle goes for over 200 yards on the ground, and the Carolina Panthers just hung around. They just kept chipping away. And it felt like the Miami Dolphins not only took their foot off the gas after being up 17-0, they got out of the car and walked away. I'm talking Angela Bassett style, car blowing up behind them. They didn't even turn around. They tried to play a clock game from about the middle of the second quarter on. It was way too conservative. Just piss poor effort by the defense, piss poor effort by the offense playing with a lead. Tua Tagovailoa's got to be better late in the game. You cannot miss a wide open Jalen Waddle like that with the game on the line. I mean, it's inexcusable. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. That's really what the word is. That's the word of the day. Unacceptable. It's unacceptable for the players. It's unacceptable for the coaches. Should be unacceptable for the front office, the owner, and of course, as fans, we're fed up. I don't know anybody in my circle that's excited about this week's game. Not one person has come up to me, talked to me, sent anything on social media being like, all right, we're excited to see Chargers Dolphins. No one. We're not talking Herbert Tua. We're not talking any of this. Everybody's just like, you know what? Is there another sport I can watch? Are the Florida Panthers dropping a puck? I don't know. My Dodgers are playing. They could go to the NLCS if they clinch tonight. I'm more excited about baseball, hockey, basketball, and probably badminton and pickleball than I am about the Miami Dolphins and football right now. Which, by the way, all those sports, you could probably find good quality lines on Fanduel. But you know who doesn't have good quality lines? The Miami Dolphins. Not on defense, not on offense. I mean, Kenneth Grant. You guys have probably seen the meme going around. Kenneth Grant has 4 solo tackles. Jamar Chase, a wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, has 5. We could add Tyler Warren, who is arguably the best tight end already in the league for the Indianapolis Colts. We got Kenneth Grant. Seems to be a bad pick early. Now, look, there's time to develop. There's time to grow. Chop Robinson didn't immediately jump out of the gates last year and do much of anything until about the second half of the season. Seems to be the same thing this year, by the way. We could really use a little bit of Chop Robinson in our lives. But Kenneth Grant, Zach Sealer, Benito Jones, I mean, everyone on that line, the defensive line, that was supposed to be the cream of the crop. That was supposed to be fixed with these draft picks, with these extensions to Zach Sealer, and it's the worst unit on defense, bar none. It's the biggest disappointment on the team, and it's the worst unit on defense. I mean, Kenneth Grant's getting pushed 9, 10, 11 yards down off the line of scrimmage. I mean, it looks like he's playing safety if you look at where he ends up. I mean, the personnel decisions, Willie Gay's playing 3 snaps. That guy makes plays. I don't understand what is going on. I don't understand the proclivity for not playing Willie Gay. I get it. They've got the green dot on Jordan Brooks' helmet. Well, fucking figure out how to get Willie Gay on the field next to him then. I mean, Jalen Phillips got a sack. That was good. That's nice. But I feel like he's a guy that you got to trade. I mean, and that's what I would do. There's one guy that I would target to be off this team would be Jalen Phillips. Not because he's a bad player or a bad apple. It's because he's the only one that really has any value now that Tyreek Hill is gone. And oh, by the way, Tyreek Hill is gone. He ain't coming back. I don't care how quickly he heals from that surgery. If he's ready to go for 2026, he will be on another team. He will not be on the Miami Dolphins. They are not guaranteeing that salary. He will be cut, in my opinion, before day 3 of the new league year in March next year. Based on everything that's always swirling around Tyreek, the new stuff that's coming out now, plus the injury, plus that contract, no. It's a recipe for disaster. Thanks for the memories, Reek. Move on. But the Miami Dolphins, I mean, I think they got to start trading. I mean, they're not going to go find anybody that's going to salvage this season. You're 1-4. You're losing to the worst teams in the league at this point. And you haven't even hit the tough part of the schedule. I mean, you got Lamar Jackson coming back, and you're going to play the Baltimore Ravens. You got a Washington Commanders team that isn't as good as last year, but still much better than the Miami Dolphins are this year. You've got a Cleveland Browns team that's defense is otherworldly. I don't know what the Miami Dolphins are going to do here, other than start looking at quality draft picks because they're going to get a top 10. And they might as well add to the pile. Might as well go ahead and trade Jalen Phillips. Get rid of Bradley Chubb if you can, if that contract allows for it. Take the heat. Rebuild. It's not a reset anymore. It's a rebuild. And if you're doing a rebuild, you better rebuild the whole thing. You rebuild the players, the team, the offense, the defense, the special teams. You got to rebuild the coaching staff. You got to rebuild the front office. You got to rebuild the trust with the Miami Dolphins everywhere. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't think Stephen Ross cares if the team wins or loses on the field, other than from a business standpoint, losing is bad for business. And Stephen Ross understands business. He doesn't understand football, clearly, but he understands business. And if the Miami Dolphins fans stop showing up to games, if Miami Dolphins fans stop buying, the Dark Water rivalry jerseys, and all of a sudden those cash pipelines don't happen anymore, then he'll take notice. I don't think he's looking at the banner above the stadium that the fans are paying their hard-earned money for. Stop doing that, by the way. I don't think he cares that we lose to the Colts and the Bills and the Patriots. I think he cares that we lose to the Panthers. Because even people that don't watch football were texting me like, Jesus, what happened? I mean, that's how bad it is. There are people out there that didn't even know the Panthers were still in the league. At this point, the Florida Panthers could probably beat the Miami Dolphins in football. I mean, it's that bad. So that's what he's going to listen to. He's going to listen to the business side. And that's what the Miami Dolphins and Stephen Ross are going to have to fix. Winning is good for business. And right now, business is bad in South Florida. And you can almost look at it and go, all right, well, the Colts are pretty good. Like, we didn't know who the Colts were. We got blown out by the Colts. Turns out the Colts are pretty good. They've got a really good game plan early this year. They've won a lot of games. They've got talent on both sides of the ball, and they're using it. Okay, hats off to them. We lost to a better team. Losing to the Patriots, man, you can't have that happen, right? Well, the Patriots just beat the Bills. The Patriots are looking like a playoff contender. The Patriots are better than the Miami Dolphins right now, and we hung with them, so you think, okay, well, maybe that's not so bad. Just a string of bad luck early. Of course, you lose to the Bills on a short week in Buffalo. That happens. And again, you hung in late. So through that lens, you look at this and go, well, shoot, yeah, we're 0-3, but you know what? We beat the Jets. We're 1-3. Those teams were better than we thought. So we're okay. No, you're not. You lost to the Panthers. Panthers are worse than the Miami Dolphins. Bryce Young is not a good quarterback. Rico Dowdle should not get 200 yards in a season, let alone a game. And that team, both offensively and defensively, just should not stack up against the Miami Dolphins talent across the board. Yet here we are, 1-4. You lost to a bad team. You've lost to some good teams, but you lost to a bad team. And that's when you look at this and go, all right, this doesn't work anymore. They're not buying Mike McDaniel's message. They're not listening to Anthony Weaver. They aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Just naturally talented players. They're not doing it. They're getting pushed around. They're getting bullied. They're getting beat up. They're losing. And that's the math. But we're going to talk about it. And go take a break, pay some bills. We're going to bring David Bearman in from Betting with Bearman right here on the BLEAV Network. Again, he's a Dolphins fan. He's drinking in the morning as well, just like the rest of us. So we're going to go take a break. We'll bring David in, and we'll be back right after these words. All right, welcome back. Sam Marcous, the town of Perfectville, here on the BLEAV Network, presented by Fanduel. And as I told you, sometimes I'm alone, but I'm never lonely. I got my friends here. I got David Bearman from the Betting with Bearman podcast. He was just on the show about 6 weeks ago. This might be the fastest turnaround that we have had a guest come back, but it felt necessary and appropriate to have David on the show this week and talk Miami Dolphins football. As you guys know, David Bearman is a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan. He's a Florida Gator. This has been a really, really bad football year for both you and I, my friend. Other than that, how are you doing?
Doing great. Got a good family, got a good house, got good kids. Got to look at the bright side of things because NFL and college football seasons have been positively miserable. But with the Betting with Bearman, I'm doing well in the betting industry and making some picks, and primetime has been very, very, very good to us. I've had the props. So that's turned me into instead of just rooting for the Dolphins, which has been painful, we've started to, let's root for our bets. Let's root for, let's root for some sort of happiness over the weekend. The fantasy teams are doing good. I'm still alive in the guillotine pool. So there are things outside of the Miami Dolphins, which has not necessarily been a focus in the first 40-something years of my life.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been following you for the first part of the week and some of your picks, obviously, and I have my picks that I do for FanDuel as well, and I'm okay, but I'm about 500, probably because I'm putting too much stock into the Miami Dolphins early. But I am watching some of the things you did, and I think against the Bills, you hit like a three. You threw it out. There was like a 3-leg parlay, and you hit all three of them, and I was like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. And then I went back. Started taking a look at what you were talking about when you were on the show with both Chris Cullen and myself about 6-7 weeks ago, and I went, this guy really knows what he's talking about. Just for the uninitiated, if you haven't listened to that show, pause this one, go listen to that one. It was a long conversation with David. First of all, I want to apologize because at the time we told you it was going to be a 20-minute interview. We ended up being on the air and off air talking to one another for about 90 minutes. Your children wanted to watch a movie with you, which turns out to be the biggest movie of the year. I remember you talking, it was like K-pop, zombie demons or whatever it turns out to be. And instead you said, no, we're going to go talk about the greatest football team in history for an hour and a half. And I'm going to divorce myself from the family. And looking back on that now, it would have been time well spent for you to tell us to no, we're not going to talk about this awful team. And I'm going to go spend time with my family. So I apologize.
I do have an update for you because it was a recent update. You said it's been 6 weeks, and that's absolute true story. They were watching K-pop Demon Hunters, and about halfway through it, and I said, we got to pause. I got to go do a quick hit with Perfectville, and turned into 90 minutes. And at some point, they gave up on me and watched the end of the movie. And since then, my kids have watched it probably 20 times each. And this past Friday night, well, it was movie night in the household, and we had Chinese food and ready for a movie. And they said, let's watch K-pop Demon Hunters. And my wife goes, no, we've already seen it like 5 times. And my son goes, but Daddy hasn't. Daddy only watched the first half because he went and did a Dolphin podcast. So we're going to rewatch it tonight. So, update, I have watched K-pop Demon Hunters. Not sure I understood it, but I watched it. And yes, it's one of the most popular movies out there. It's good. It's there. The world was saved, and we moved on.
Well, I like your review. You watched it, but you're not sure if you understood it. And I think that's appropriate for the Miami Dolphins here in 2025, because I don't know that I understand exactly what in the hell happened against the Carolina Panthers. Because when you look at the stats, they win in time of possession, they win in the turnover battle, they're scoring early, yet you lose. And we could see it coming from about the mid-second quarter. It just all of a sudden, like I said in the first part of the show, David, it wasn't that the Miami Dolphins took their foot off the gas. It's that they got out of the car and walked away while the car blew up behind them. It was just a miserable give-up experience. And for me, looking at all that talent and the opponent, in this case, the Carolina Panthers, you could make a case. Look at what the Colts have done first part of the season. Okay, the Colts are just a better team, way better than anybody anticipated, including Colts, if I'm being honest. The Patriots are a much better team than anybody gave them credit for, which I know kills both of us to hear and see and say that. And of course, the Bills are who the Bills are. So you lose to 3 teams that, in hindsight, you probably should lose to because they're better than the Miami Dolphins. There's no excuse against the Carolina Panthers. I look at that today and say 9 times out of 10, we're beating them, and it's a lock. But this happened to be the 10th time, and the Miami Dolphins blew it. And I think it comes down, my opinion, it absolutely comes down to coaching. It's a mindset, and they unraveled, they let loose, and the coaches couldn't recognize it, or they recognized it and couldn't tie him back up. Either way, my opinion, I think Mike McDaniel has to go now. I'm shocked he's still with this team. I don't think he should even make the trip to Madrid, or if he does, you leave him there like you talked about. But what are you seeing?
Hey, we'll get to the coaching in a minute, and I totally agree with you there. It puts it in perspective, exactly what you just said. They lost to 3 teams that now you look back on it that are better than you, including the Patriots. And then you beat the Jets, and let's not, give participation trophy here. They didn't look great in beating the Jets. They looked okay in beating the Jets. And then you said they shouldn't lose to the Carolina Panthers. And I made a comment to a friend in a group chat during the third quarter when I predicted they were going to lose this game. I said, you can't lose to one of the worst teams in football. You just can't. And the response was, David, we are one of the worst teams in football. And you think about it, they have barely beaten the 0-5 Jets, and then they lost to the 1-4 Panthers. So you and I don't like to admit it. And, I did stop watching K-pop Demon Hunters to go talk about the wonderful Miami Dolphins 6 weeks ago. But to borrow a line from the late, great Denny Green, they are who we thought they were. They're not a very good football team. And I did a piece for Dolphins Talk over the summer where I talked about where the Super Bowl odds were for the Dolphins, and they were down in teams like the Cowboys and the Steelers and the Cardinals, and barely above the teams like the Panthers. And it's like, do they really belong down there? That's a question. And us optimists, we're always optimists in August. We're like, all right, this is still a 7, 8, 9 win team according to Vegas. They're not the Panthers. They're not the Browns. Well, maybe they are, because they're 1-4. They've beaten absolutely nobody. They've lost to everybody decent, and they got outplayed and outcoached, which is what we're going to hit on next, by the Carolina Panthers. And going back to your question about Mike McDaniel, listen, I was on the Mike McDaniel, Johnny Cochran defense stand for years with this guy because of his innovative offense and scoring 70 points a game. And he didn't have Tua in 2024, and he didn't have Tua in 2022 when he made the playoffs, and give him a chance. And I even said, I predicted correctly late last year in the lost season that Stephen Ross would not get rid of McDaniel because he didn't have a full season of Tua. Okay, well, you're now 5 games into this season. You got a full season of Tua so far. Nobody is injured on offense other than Tyreek Hill, who got injured in the last game. And here's the problem. And here's the problem, Sam. And I've said this, and I've pulled a 180, and I'm out on Mike. And I said it in your preseason show, if he gone by Madrid. Not sure he makes it to Madrid. Right. Again, can't predict what Stephen Ross is going to do. If we did that, we wouldn't be on the air. We'd be retired on a beach somewhere. What bothers me about McDaniel and the rest of this offense or team, coaching staff, is they can't adjust to the adjustments. Every good coach in the history of the game, from Bill Belichick to Don Shula to Vince Lombardi to even recently with Andy Reid and other good coaches, adjust to the adjustments. Bill Belichick was known to take away your top player, and if you were able to adjust, he then adjusted to you. Find me a game in the 4-year tenure of Mike McDaniel where we came out of halftime with a tweak or a change to the game plan that benefited the Miami Dolphins. I can't find one, and this last game is literally exhibit A, B, C, and D. At some point, the Carolina Panthers said, hold on, we are not going to let Darren Waller beat us over the middle. It's not going to happen. Shut that down. Shut it down now. I've been on the sideline in coaching youth football at the 6th grade level where we see something and you adjust in game. Carolina Panthers adjusted. We are not going to allow Darren Waller to beat us. Offensive shutdown. Shutdown completely. And you ask Mike McDaniel in the press conference what happened, and he's like, the Panthers changed things up in the second half. They clogged the middle. They wouldn't allow us to pass in the middle, and they wouldn't allow us to run. Well, what did you do about it? You're the play caller. You're the head coach. That is your job to adjust to the adjusters. Right. And I don't think he can do it. I just don't think it's possible. We talk about how he was as an offense coordinator in San Francisco with the running game and the zone run backs and everything. They ran for 19 yards in a game they led 17-0. That's almost impossible to do. You're up 17-0. The game script is to run 19 total yards. You're up 17-0. The other team isn't going to be able to run. They ran for 230. Hello. And the days of Mike McDaniel ignoring the defense and worrying about the offense, I mean, do something. Your defense just got shredded. So
everything you said is right. The lack of adjusting to the adjustments, I think, is really appropriate because, look, say what you will about Adam Gase, and I've certainly said a lot. One of the things that I always gave him credit for is we always, not always, but for the most part, looked better in the second half because he was able to take stock of what was happening and say, all right, I need to change my game plan. And it could be a small tweak, but if you look back at those teams, the Adam Gase era, they were always better in the second half of games than the first half. Why? Because the coaching mattered. They actually came out and said, okay, they're taking this away, so we have to take what they will give us, and maybe it's going to be nibbling on the outside, and maybe you get Achane out there, or you get Waller outside of the hash marks for 3 or 4 yards. You let him break a tackle and let him go run, do something, but you have all these racehorses, and you're just putting them in the stable. And you're not even putting them in the stable. You're allowing somebody else to put them in the stable, and you're not figuring out creative ways to let them back out and run. That right there is negligence. That right there is a fireable offense. I don't understand how that happens. And to your point, going into this game, the Carolina Panthers were one of the worst teams in terms of run defense. They were top 10 in pass defense. Why? Because no one was passing the ball against them. Why? Because they were up by 23, 24 points, and they would just run, and they couldn't stop it.
And
I don't know what happened.
The one team that tried to pass on them, which was inexplicable with Raheem Morris and the Falcons, passed the ball like 55 times. They lost 30-0.
Right. I mean, but again, they were down. So, like you said, the game script is, well, we got to get chunk plays as quickly as possible to try to get back into this game. The Miami Dolphins just did not have a good game plan. They are allergic to success, in my opinion. They don't know what to, like the dog that catches the car. They don't know what they're going to do with it once they catch it. They went up 17-0, and even Bradley Chubb said, we got soft, we got complacent, and we didn't do what we were supposed to do. And the other challenge that I'm seeing is that Bradley Chubb came out and said that team captain, about one of the only guys on defense that has consistently showed up this year. And then Mike McDaniel goes up on the podium and asks basically the same question and says, no, I didn't see that. I was checking for that. That didn't really happen. Okay, well, your stories aren't, I mean, if you guys were, arrested for a bank robbery, you guys would be having different stories right now under oath, because it's not lining up. It doesn't match. There's a misalignment here that I don't think can be fixed. That's what I'm thinking, David, is it cannot be fixed.
And I think it was Dave Hyde in the Sun Sentinel said something about what you just talked about, how like your team captain and your coach are not on the same page. And whether Mike McDaniel, you have certain jobs as a coach and a leader. One is to make changes where necessary, either at the personnel level or the game plan level. And the other is to have a pulse of your team, like feel the pulse of your team and know when the team is being complacent, know when the team is changing on you. And for him to be up there and said he didn't see it, but we all saw it. We saw a team that thought they were up 47-0 in the second quarter, which is a tweet I sent out. Why are they playing like they're up 47 points? They're only up 17. And then, the Panthers get a drive and they score. They're only up 10. It's not the end of the world. Like that's comebackable, made up word. But so I think it was Dave Hyde who wrote something about McDaniel when he answers these questions. It's always trying to turn it positive, which is fine by some leaders, but you can't ignore the negatives. He's like, he looks at it from a glasses half full point of view,
right,
all the time. And I'm that type of guy too. But when it's negative, it's negative. Like the team lost a 17-0 lead and you played like crap and the team gave up. And like you said, they left the car that blew up in front of them. And he sends up there and says, I didn't notice a problem. Or I thought our rush defense was better. Didn't see this coming. Okay. You allowed 197 yards rushing to the New York Jets in a game that you led throughout. You didn't see the Panthers going for 230.
Yeah.
Well, you're now the worst rush defense in football by a large margin. And the Panthers entered the game 26th in the NFL in rush offense at 100 yards per game.
Yeah.
100. They got 230.
And oh, by the way, that was their backup running back, Dave. It wasn't even Chuba Hubbard. It was their backup who got that 200 yards, which, by the way, I think if Chuba was in, it wouldn't have been 200 because Rico was breaking some, I guess, piss poor tackles. But kudos to him. I mean, he earned every single one of those yards.
You mentioned looking back at some of the things I've said and that I know what I'm talking about. I gave Rico Dowell out as my play of the week. He's going to go over his 61.5 yards, and he's going to score a touchdown. I gave those both out in the Betting with Bearman newsletter. And, I mean, by third quarter, it was a done deal. It's just I don't know why this coaching staff and McDaniel can't make the adjustments, don't see what we see. And he is crossing off every single box that you don't want a head coach to do. And this is a guy who entering week 17 of 2023 could have run for governor of Florida and won in a landslide. His team was in Baltimore playing for the number 1 seed in the AFC. And since then, they're 11-17, and they've looked absolute horseshit doing so, and nothing has changed. And we talk about the lack of in-game adjustments or moving Waller around. There is a definite pattern. High-flying offense, going deep, scoring big touchdowns. Teams start putting a too-high safety in there. They can't get the ball to Waddle and Hill anymore, and there's games where neither one of them had more than 2 targets, which is fireable all by itself. Raheem Mostert starts scoring touchdown after touchdown after touchdown, leading the NFL with 19, 20 touchdowns. They start stopping him from doing that. All of a sudden, the Dolphins can't score in the red zone anymore. Waller is beating teams consistently over the middle. They stop Waller. Dolphins can't move the ball anymore. What pattern do you see? You see a pattern of teams figuring McDaniel out and McDaniel not knowing what to do about it. And quite frankly, I don't want that as my head coach anymore. I don't.
Yeah. He's like that guy that you see in the movie. They're like, if you have one move on the dance floor, just stick to that move no matter what song is on, no matter what is happening. Just do that one move regardless. And at some point it becomes awkward. And here's the other thing. It's like a bad marriage, David, because all those things that would made him cool, like the press conferences and the ums and the uhs, quirky, and he's not polished and he dresses different. And, his hair looks like Miami Mike. I saw him walk to the locker room after that Panthers game, and he looked disheveled. He looked forlorn. And I was just talking shit to him with every step that he took through the screen. I'm like, look at your stupid hair. Look at those curls. They look retarded. Look at your stupid, dumb glasses that you're not even wearing anymore. Your pants don't fit. Like, I was just ripping him apart because we're sick of him. The fans are sick of him.
Cool. It's cool in GQ when you're winning and you're on Hard Knocks and you're funny and you're having fun and the team's doing celebrations. It's not funny anymore when you're losing and you're not doing anything about it. And somebody asked me after like week 2, what do I think? I think it was the Thursday night football game of week 3, where McDaniel had the $1 billion glasses on and all that stuff. Like, what do you think? I go, you know what? I honestly don't give two rats patoots about what he wears, what his watch looks like, what his shoes look like. I just want him to win as a football coach. Yeah. And it doesn't, I don't care what he wears. You can make fun of it all you want. My wife can make fun of it. I don't care. Just do something on the football field that makes me want to be happy for this Miami Dolphins team. And I said it on the Dolphins Talk podcast on Monday. Even the Jets win, I didn't go to bed happy. I'm like, nothing. We beat the Jets. Great. Like, it was a 1 touchdown game and we almost blew it. And at least 2 didn't get killed. Like, that's what I thought.
And even in that game, when you look at it, I mean, I know you've been on a lot of podcasts. You've been on the circuit this week, having to answer the same questions over and over. So it becomes muscle memory at this point. You're probably numb to it, like a lot of the Dolphins fans are. I've been listening to a lot of it, obviously making my own content. But you look at that Jets game, that victory, it was more of the Jets losing than it was the Dolphins winning. When you really look at it, I mean, yes, we were the benefactors of them being a very, very bad team. But if it was any other team other than the Jets, they probably don't fumble on the 1 yard line. You probably aren't driving 98 yards to get a touchdown yourself. Impressive drive, granted, but that doesn't happen. That opportunity isn't there other than the fact that you're playing somehow a team worse than yourself, the New York Jets. That's the only reason that hurt. I mean, you could be realistically looking at 0-5 right now for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, and they were just slightly better than the Jets. Like you said, it was more about the Jets losing than the Dolphins winning. Like, they went 75 yards right down the middle of the field, just like Carolina did. Difference is Dowell didn't fumble, and whoever had the ball or was it Braylon Allen, fumbled at the 1 yard line. And the Jets are undisciplined, pre-snap penalties, roughing the passer penalty. They're the Miami Dolphins is what they are. And the Dolphins just beat themselves is what they did. And then you go in and get completely outplayed by Carolina. And let's call it what it is. The Dolphins had a 17-point lead because Bryce Young became Bryce Young again. Dropped the ball because he was scared of Bradley Chubb.
Bryce did exactly what I would do if Bradley Chubb was chasing me, and I would throw the ball and run away. That's what I would do.
And then the next drive, he throws the ball right at Minkah Fitzpatrick in Tua style, touchdown Dolphins. And my brother, who did not see the game since he was not available on Sunday, asked me, how did the Dolphins look when they got a 17-0 lead? And by the way, if Bryce Young doesn't turn over the ball, what's that score? The Dolphins were gifted, right? And then it's punt. Like, you're not up 40, you're up 17-7. And I thought what I read about the Carolina head coach's comments at the press conference were telling as well. Carolina was so shocked that the first play of the third quarter was a 53-yard run up the middle that they had to call timeout to avoid a delay game because Dave Canales did not have another play ready. He did not expect them to be on the Dolphin side of the field on the second play. So the Carolina head coach was so stunned that they ran for 53 yards on basically a halfback power that, oh shit, I don't have a second play ready for that. So let's call timeout.
Call timeout. Go get me the other playbook that has the plus side of the field offense on it. That's insane.
How crappy are you when you surprise the other offensive coach? Okay.
Yeah. Well, we're talking to David Bearman from Betting with Bearman here on the BLEAV Network, powered by Fanduel. Speaking of Fanduel, I did take a sneak peek at the game coming up, and I talked about, prior to you hopping on here, David, it's fun to look at the numbers because it tells a story. It's not just, the Chargers are favored by 4.5. It's really telling you insight as to what people think of both of these teams. When I look at the Chargers right now, I think they've lost 2 in a row. They're down to their third string running back themselves. They're struggling a little bit, at least as far as where the Chargers are supposed to be right now. They are traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast across the continent to play an early game. This is usually a recipe for a Miami Dolphins victory. You see it time and time again. West Coast teams do not travel well to the East Coast, yet here we are. and they're favored by 4.5, meaning the Chargers over the Dolphins on the road against the Miami Dolphins. And I think that tells the story of what everyone is thinking about in terms of who the Miami Dolphins are right now. Tua Tagovailoa is playing decent. I mean, he's got 1,000 yards passing. He's got 10 touchdowns versus 4 interceptions. He's not as accurate as he used to be. There's inexcusable throws like the one to Jalen Waddle on that last drive. I mean, he was wide open with like room to run. That could have been a touchdown, and somehow he just sailed it. And thankfully, Jalen Waddle was able to knock it down. Not that it did us any good. To your point, you're missing Tyreek Hill. You're missing the right side of your line, and they're not coming back anytime soon, according to Mike McDaniel. The defense is put me back there behind this Chargers line, even though they're banged up, and I'm probably going for 150. I feel like minus 4.5 is easy money to take the Chargers in this game. Are you seeing it differently, or is that about where it's supposed to be? I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
I would take the Chargers if forced to pick here. Like, yes, the team has struggled the last 2 games, but this is a team that showed up and beat 3 AFC West teams to start the season, including the Broncos and the Chiefs, who probably will both be in the postseason. So they started out 3-0 with 3 division wins, looked as good as anybody in football. You lose the next week, you lost a game, you lose I'm trying to remember who they lost to in week 4.
They also did with Jackson Dart's debut.
That's right. It's right. They lost to the Giants in a game they should have never lost. You do it. I mean, again, it was a travel West Coast, East Coast scenario. They played an early game at the Meadowlands, and then it was Jackson Dart's debut and all that, and the Giants played their best game of the season. They actually dominated the Commanders for the first half, and they were up in the first half, and they dominated, and then they just couldn't get off the field versus the Commanders in the second half, and Justin Herbert threw a really bad pass at the goal line that changed the whole context of that game. They're at the goal line, and they score, and that's a tie game going into the fourth quarter. Instead, it's an interception, and Jaden Daniels and the Commanders had about a 7.5-minute drive to put the game away. So it ends up as a 2-touchdown win for the Commanders. That game was a heck of a lot closer than the final score. Like I said, they were one bad pass away from tying that game late, and they're just a better team. You want to compare – I don't want to compare the quarterbacks because I was Tua over Herbert for my entire 5 years here, and I just don't want to have that discussion anymore. I just don't. They're down to the third-string running back. You just said he can put you back there and run for 100 yards. I don't know where they're going to go at running back, but whoever they have will have a good game against the Dolphins. What worries me about this game is the Chargers' defense is not the Panthers, it's not the Jets, and it's not the Patriots. This is a really good Chargers defense that even in their losses to the Giants, who, by the way, had a almost pick 6 down to the 1-yard line. So it's not like the Chargers gave up a lot of points to the Giants. One of the drives was a 1-yard drive after the interception. Right. And it was a tight game. And, they allowed 3 touchdowns to Jaden Daniels' return in the Commanders. This is a team that is, I'm looking at the stats right now. They're 4th against the pass, 18th against the run. The Dolphins can't run anyway, and 7th in total defense. This is a really good defense. I do not see the Dolphins being able to get up 17-0 unless Justin Herbert hands them 2 scores. It's going to be a drawn-out, control-the-clock type game, and in that, the Chargers have a tremendous advantage over the Dolphins because I don't care who's the running back for the Chargers. They are a running team that is good no matter who's back there, and the Dolphins can't stop anybody. The Chargers are 14th in running, 10th in passing, and 12th in total offense. I expect them to control the clock, move it. It's not going to be a high-scoring game, but they're going to be able to move the ball on the Dolphins, and I don't think the Dolphins can keep up because they can't run the ball. And the Chargers have a really good pass defense. So I see the Chargers winning this. It's probably first half will be tight because it always is, except for the Colts game. And then the Chargers, look for the coach. It's Harbaugh. Do you want Harbaugh or do you want McDaniel? I expect the second half to be a disaster. So Chargers second half line, they go ahead and win this game like 27-17.
See, I had it 24-10, which is actually how I had the Dolphins beating the Panthers. And then I was so mad when I was like, well, the over's going to hit because I had the under. And then, at least when we couldn't even do that. It was like, well, what a disaster all the way around. Fire him just because I lost my bets.
You can blame me. I manifested that in because my son came down to check on the game in the fourth quarter, and he knew I was on the under. And I said, the only way we lose is if it's touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. And they went touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. The one time Tua brings them down the field, and then they allow another one. I was like, all right, there goes that one. Not as bad as the under in the Titans-Cardinals game that I lost.
Well, I will say this. We got that, busted coverage, if you want to call it that, where Jalen Waddle just smoked him and very underthrown ball, but he adjusted, he got it, and it was a touchdown. I was like, we just scored way too early. I just knew there's 4 minutes on the clock. We can't stop anything right now. This is not the momentum stopper. This is just you gave them the ball back while they're still hot, and turned out to be true. The other thing about this Chargers defense, I mean, the Harbaugh brothers just made themselves a deal where the Chargers just got themselves yet another pass rusher, and I don't know, Odafe Owe. I mean, a really good player for the Ravens who's having kind of a down year, change of scenery. He comes in. He's probably going to be playing against this Miami Dolphins offensive line. Would not surprise me if you see him walk away with 2 sacks against Tua Tagovailoa, and this just wounded or horrible. I mean, Jonah Saibai-Naya, I watched him again. I could play left guard better than he can. I mean, when I, a 42-year-old man, soon to be 43-year-old man, is looking at certain positions and saying, I could do that, you're not at a good spot in terms of your personnel, in terms of your coaching, in terms of your team.
I just don't know anything that I have watched so far with this team leads me to believe they can beat a team the caliber of the Chargers. Oh, people are going to say, well, they've lost 2 in a row, including a game to the Giants. Well, it was an unfortunate loss to the Giants with a couple of un-Harbaugh-like mistakes. And like I said, they were down to the 1 yard line to tie the game against the Commanders, and they choked it away. Like, sorry, Justin Herbert is not Tom Brady. He's not Joe Montana. He makes mistakes. He made a big one. Then they couldn't get off the field. And there's nothing about what I have seen that leads me to believe that they're going to beat the Chargers. Okay. And if I'm Jim Harbaugh and I'm watching tape of the Dolphins, like I'm sitting back with popcorn laughing my butt off. Like, this is the team we got to play this week. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And we're going to do this. And by the way, if they take away this, we're going to do that.
We're going to
that's called coaching.
All right. So let me hit you this. I got a couple things, and I'm going to try to end this on a positive note because I think we're both positive guys. We're still going to watch our sports over the weekend. I mean, Dodgers are going for the sweep against the Phillies tonight. I mean, there's good stuff out there. Hockey started up. You know, you've got
Panthers, two-time defending champs. They won last night.
Yep, my LA Kings blew it on opening night, but that's okay. They play again tonight in Las Vegas, so we'll see if they can get off the schneid. Looking at this team, if you were in charge, you're Stephen Ross or you're his proxy. Give me 3 moves that you could make or that you would make that would help set this team up for sustained future success. You can do anything. Don't even worry about the salary cap right now. But what is it that you would do? What are the 3 moves that David Bearman would make to turn this franchise around and stop the bleeding? Nothing else.
I would immediately remove the coach and the GM because I think if you wait until January, you're missing out on some of the best minds in football. I know most of the best minds in football have jobs, but there are people out there without a job that I would hire somebody at the top, player personnel guy, bring him, hey, this is your team. We'll have an interim coach the rest of the season. You have the next X number of weeks until the November, whatever trade deadline to move some pieces. I wouldn't call it a fire sale. You can't say that anymore in the NFL. I wouldn't call it a tank job. You definitely can't say that anymore in the NFL. The Dolphins have proven that. But I would move the pieces that you know are not going to be there because that's nothing wrong with that. I would move Bradley Chubb. You're not re-signing him in his contract. I would move Jaden Phillips, like you said, off air. I would move him because too much damage for a guy that you're not going to replace. You've seen him lose a step. I would get rid of some of the pieces that you know are not going to go around. You know they're not re-signing Tyreek Hill. That's a foregone conclusion. That's a $51 million malpractice if they do that. And I would start – you say it – I say it like we haven't said it before. Like, you got to build in the trenches. I would trade for picks. I would try to emulate what Howie Roseman's doing and get good guys that can get in there and block and get in there and do stuff in the trenches. I would start by literally Greer, great. McDaniel, great. You're done. You're gone. I know it's not as simple and cut as dry as that. Bring in someone now at the personnel level and say, hey, you have the next couple of weeks to mold this team into something that's going to benefit us come April. And then you'll be the official. Hire an interim GM. I know it's not been done. Hire an interim GM, interim coach from the team, interim GM from the outside. You have until the end of the season to become a full-time GM. Hire your coach. Make it crystal clear whoever the interim coach is not guaranteed to be the new head coach. Go get your coach and mold this team. Like, you got to build in the trenches, and by the love of God, we need a secondary. I would probably trade Minka because he's on the back end of his career. He hasn't had a good season since he was traded the first time. And I would start making the moves now. You can't just do a total tank job. You'll get in trouble like they did last time. But you got to acquire picks. But most importantly, since we've acquired picks before, you have to find someone who can use the picks. Yep. And we could spend the next 7 hours going through all the mistakes that Chris Greer has made. And listen, he's not the only GM who's made mistakes. I read something the other day that Dave Dombrowski, who has won titles with the Florida Marlins and won titles with the Boston Red Sox and has brought the Phillies back to prominence after bringing the Tigers to the World Series, 4 teams to the World Series in his career, once traded Randy Johnson for prospects. So people make mistakes, but you can't make the repeated mistakes that absolutely set your team back forever. I mean, you're giving Tyreek Hill an extension. You're giving Jalen Ramsey an extension. You're giving, up picks to go get a guard that's been measured as the worst guard in the draft so far. You can't consistently, and we're not even talking about the 2021 draft, which will go down in infamy as drafting who they got instead of who they could have gotten, but we won't go there.
No, I think I agree with everything there. I mean, you do have to start shedding some of these contracts and feel the pain. Here's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see Stephen Ross come out and say, we messed up. We made a mistake. And as the owner of this franchise, I take personal responsibility for not being as active. I don't need him to be Jerry Jones, but I want him to be a little bit more active in the day-to-day process of the Miami Dolphins. I want him to pretend like he cares about what is actually happening on the field. But I would love an apology. That's what I want. I want an apology from the Miami Dolphins to say, we messed up. We're taking action. We're hoping that the action that we take is the right action. I agree with you. I'd get rid of the coach. I'd get rid of Chris Greer. I understand the whole point of like wanting to keep him because the scouting is happening all year round and you want to keep all that together. No, Chris Greer cannot be allowed to make any more personnel decisions for the Miami Dolphins. He's had far too long as the GM. He's been with the team for 25 years. And in those 25 years, we have 0 playoff wins. It's time to send a message. And that message is, we're not going to take this anymore. We're clearing this out. We're flushing the system. We're going to get somebody in here on the coaching side that hopefully has some coaching experience. I mean, Rex Ryan's thrown out there. John Gruden's out there. John Harbaugh might be available. I mean, if you can't get Jim Harbaugh, then go ahead and get the Temu older brother or younger brother. I don't even know I think he's younger. But the point is, they got to do something. I agree with you. Tyreek Hill is gone. I think Jalen Phillips and Mika Fitzpatrick need to go. I think Bradley Chubb, if you can trade him with that contract, you probably should, because again, any value you can get, even if it's a 4th round pick, helps you restock the cupboards, because you're going to need cheap talent to evaluate for the next couple of years as all that dead cap starts to, those chickens come back to roost. So it's going to be, I think what I'm saying, Dolphins fans, citizens of Perfectville, it's going to be a painful time for the Miami Dolphins over the next couple of years. It's no longer a reset, as Chris Greer talks about. It is a full-blown rebuild, strip it to the studs, re-pour the foundation, and start over. Speaking of starting over, this has been a very go ahead, David.
Almost like we did that before.
I know. I mean, that's the thing. Like, at least we have the muscle memory for it. We've done this before. We've seen it before. We're kind of like Bane. Like, yeah, you lived in the darkness. We were born in it. We'll be okay. We'll come out the other end. But speaking of coming out the other end, let's end this on what I consider to be a high note when we're talking football. And that's because our Florida Gators did beat the Texas Longhorns. They did beat a ranked team. Surprise to me. That was a fun little Easter egg nugget for me last Saturday. How'd you feel about your boys going out there and finally taking care of business?
Hey, they looked great. It was fun to watch. I was excited to finally watch some good football for once. First time all year I watched good football, if you can, combine the two teams. I worry that Napier has got this on repeat, where he sets the bar so low with really awful coaching, mistakes, clock management, bad losses, sets the bar so low the whole world wants to get rid of him. And then we beat Ole Miss and we beat LSU. And now, you know what? The players are playing for Billy. We want to keep DJ Lagway. Don't want to put him in the portal. Let's give him another year. And went out with a bang, and they won 8 games. No one saw that coming, yada, yada, yada. Next year, bad coaching, bad clock management, lose games you shouldn't lose to South Florida, get embarrassed by Miami and LSU, whatever. It was a close game because of 5, whatever. Go ahead and beat Texas.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they're playing hard for Billy. They're winning games. At some point, Scott Strickland's got to sit there and say, what is the bar at the University of Florida? What is the bar? And I said this 3 years ago with Billy when they kept him. And I said it 2 years ago with Billy. And I said it last year with Billy. If the bar is 8 wins and somewhat competing in the SEC with a win over Texas, maybe you got lucky and you beat Georgia in the cocktail party one year, or you go beat FSU in a down year like last year. If that's the bar, Billy's your guy.
Right.
He beat Texas. He's beaten Florida State. He's competed with Georgia. If the bar is national championships, which is the era I grew up in and the era you grew up in, then Billy's not your guy, because you are not winning SEC championships or national championships with Billy Napier as your coach. You can't get out coached by South Florida and win national championships. That's just not what's going to happen. He is not good enough when you need him to be good enough to win consistently. Again, you want to win 7 or 8 games, upset a Texas once a year, feel good about yourself, go to a CarQuest Bowl or a Blockbuster Bowl or Weed Eater, Idaho Potato, Independence, Labor something Bowl. Great. If your bar is New Year's Day or later, and you want to be in this thing called the college football playoff that everybody gets in now, they have like 400 teams get in the college football playoff, then you need a new coach. So I know you asked me what I thought of Florida's performance, but I worry that it's just like I tweeted it out during the game. Billy's got us right where he wants us. Sets the bar so freaking low that a win against Texas rallies everybody together. And God bless, if they beat Florida State at the end of the year, we're never going to get rid of this guy.
I think his days are numbered personally. I agree. I hear what you're saying. I think, I don't know, it feels like the check has been written for both of the coaches of our favorite football teams here. And I hope so, because I agree with you. I don't think you're not getting past the SEC with this coaching staff in Florida. It's just, it ain't going to happen. It's like trying to.
The difference for me is I was never a fan of the hire. I was never from the beginning. I was all team. I don't think I said exactly what I said on a podcast 4 years ago when I hired him. Where's the bar? McDaniel, he had me. He had me at, instead of having me at hello, he had me at 70 points. He had me.
Yeah. Well, and he had me, you said he doesn't have his finger on the pulse of the team at the beginning of this interview. It's ironic because he was the guy that said, if you're not excited, you need to check your pulse. So you would feel like if nothing else, he would have, the tone and tenor of what's going on with his team, but he did not. But speaking of podcasts, because I know you've been a very busy guy, you got your own here. Let everybody know where they can find you if they haven't figured it out already.
Yeah, Betting with Bearman. I'm actually taping in about an hour. It should be out in a couple of hours. I'm taping with today with Sia Najad, who is the host of CBS Sports Line's Early Edge betting podcast. He'll be joining me to talk about the Week 6 NFL action. We've had a host of guests every single week, someone different. We started with Chris the Bear Felica, a former colleague of mine, and now with Fox Sports. And we're going to keep rotating guests all year long. We'll break down college football and NFL. It's Betting with Bearman podcast. And also write a newsletter, Betting with Bearman newsletter, which can be found at bearmanbets.com, or go to my Twitter. The name's right there. It's at David Bearman. It's a link right there to the podcast and the newsletter. Published a newsletter actually just a little bit ago, giving some Thursday night football action. Since I will not be around tomorrow, I'll be at the game tomorrow night. I go to giant primetime home games, not to see any football that's any better than the Dolphins. My buddy's a giant season ticket holder, and I go to the night games with him. I love doing it. We go down there. We're going to see the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. But my picks are already in the newsletter at bearmanbets.com.
Well, thank you very much. That's awesome. I'm actually a Giants fan, mainly because of what they did to the Patriots to prevent second team from moving into the town of Perfectville. And speaking of Perfectville, nobody's perfect except for David and myself. So on behalf of David, Betting with Bearman, David, yes, one more thing.
You know what? That's why I sent you a note the other night, because I was sending out all the Perfectville stuff because the Bills lost, and I was all happy that sadly, and you've said it before, sadly, that's the only thing that makes us happy nowadays is when the last team loses. Pathetically, we've been doing this for 50 years. Yeah. That's when I said, I need to reach out to my Perfectville guy.
No, I appreciate that. The way I look at this, we are now a nostalgia act. I mean, we're the Hall of Fame rock and roll band that's going around playing the hits. Nobody wants to see the new album, and that's what the Miami Dolphins are at this point, which is kind of sad. I guess we did not end on a positive note, and that is my fault. But that's how you
positive. 53 years running, it is positive. And if somebody sent me a note the other day that said, now that the NFL is going to go to 18 games, this is a streak that will never be broken.
It might be the only streak that will not have. I mean, even I was watching the Bills. I think they were the last official team to lose, and go defeated. Seeing how they played against the Dolphins, the fact that we hung in there till late, I was like, somebody's beating this team. I was not worried. This might be one of the earliest times that I can remember that a team has been defeated in the NFL. I mean, we're not even midway through October, and it's like, okay, well, that was over.
I looked it up, 2014, week 3. That was the last earliest before we...
Well, look at that. Look at the stats that David Bearman just pulled out there. That is fantastic knowledge. I applaud that. That's positive as well. He's David Bearman. I'm Sam Marcous. So on behalf of both of us, the entire BLEAV Network presented by Fanduel, the only thing left to say is goodbye from Perfectville. Later.